Well, hello and welcome back to my Mass Effect coverage. So, yes, Mass Effect 2, we spent several episodes talking about how I had some problems with the game. However, from this point onwards, the game really comes into a life of its own. You get onto the new Normandy, you've got this brilliant camera sweeping and, depth of field effects going on with a really nice soaring musical track. And you also get to start meeting your new crewmates, and I have to say BioWare really does knock it out of the park when it comes to this part of the game. And I've got to say, there is always the opportunity to have a pop at Miranda, so I'm about to do that and basically put her back in a box. And I actually think if you look closely, she does sort of get a little bit stroppier body language, and the look she gives just look a bit off. Now, I'm not sure whether that does vary if you agree with her or not, but I just noticed it on watching the replay that she definitely seems to stare off in the distance in a slightly awkward way. Now, Edie pops up here, and she actually becomes quite an interesting character later on, but what's very interesting in reflecting on Mass Effect is how it's looking at some of the potential difficulties humanity will actually face in reality in the future. So how are we going to cope with leaving Earth? Because obviously at some stage we probably will need to. How are we going to cope with artificial intelligence? How are we going to deal with immigration and stuff like that? And that's all very relevant to us in 2017 as well. So it's quite interesting. I think it's what makes the game really good in the sense that it does look at some themes that are universal. So okay, it is a sci-fi setting, but it's dealing with real genuine concerns that actually affect us in our current lives. But anyway, you now get a little kind of mini tour of Normandy where it points out various bits. So I'm going to spend some time running around the ship, having a chat to the crew, and then we will actually go and dock and, as I say, start the main adventure where, as I say, the brilliance of BioWare starts to shine through, and that's why this game gets great rewards. And as I've said in pretty much every single episode up to now, the game looks fantastic straight out the box, but looks even better with the high-res textures, and I'll say still a joy to play. And as when I played it originally, I was really upset by the first hour or so, but once you get to this point, that all fades away into the background, and you get to really enjoy a fantastic story all the way through to the final mission. And first thing I'm going to do is going to go up here, check for any little unlocks, and as you can see, there's already one popping up to do with controls, and a rather nice little touch. The guy sitting at the seat there, down bottom left, he swiveled around to look at me because I was just standing still. Anyway, the controls allows you to shut the shutters, and then you get Joker getting really excited about leather seats and how they're really comfy. And of course, he makes a little barbed remark about Edie, and as I say, these two characters have a great little story thread running throughout Mass Effect 2 and into Mass Effect 3. So here you go, Mr. Moreau, and yeah, we got this AI, what a pain. Anyway, lots of chat options here, which are great. And of course, Joker's a little bit concerned about AI spying on him, and this is an interesting thread. I mean, is Edie a force for good? Is Miranda a force for good? I mean, they work for Cerberus, and as I've mentioned previously, we are not so keen on Cerberus, so you get a great chance to have a chat to Edie. And at first, she's not that forthcoming with information. She does tell you a fair bit, and lots of little great opportunities for Seth Green to really kind of use some of his comedy stuff as the character of Joker. Now, the rest of the crew are interesting. Some of them I think are kind of ex-Normandy crewmates, some of them are Cerberus people, some of them are kind of ex-Alliance who've left to join Cerberus, and to me it's a bit of the problem I have with Mass Effect 2 is the sort of 360 or 180 some people have taken with regard to Cerberus. I'll say they were a really evil terrorist organisation in Mass Effect 1, and a lot of people seem to be going along the route of, hey, Cerberus are the people getting it done. They can't be all that bad, and that doesn't sit comfortably with me. We're going to find a bit more of the sinisterness of Cerberus now, where we get our little assistant here, Yeoman Chambers, and she's an interesting character. I believe if you try quite hard, there is an option to sort of romance her, and I think I did manage it on one of my playthroughs. But anyway, Kelly, she is sort of your secretary. She's also a counsellor, and by having a chat with her, you get to find all this out. And she does have an appearance in Mass Effect 3, I believe, but there are things in the game which means that might not happen. So there's lots of really cool bits in Mass Effect 2 that you become to appreciate more if you get to Mass Effect 3. So when you're talking about Mass Effect, it's always difficult to remember what was new and what was fresh in Mass Effect 2, because I have actually played Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3, as I previously mentioned. And although I really dislike Mass Effect 3, there are elements about it that are quite good. And I'll say there's 2 story arcs that I think are dealt with in a reasonable way, which is the Krogan and the Geth story arcs. I think they got dealt with in a pretty decent manner across Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3. As I say, it's just little minor slips that make it very easy to go off on a rant if you so desire. But again, visually stunning, story-wise at this point, really good. Lots of interesting bits and pieces. Now, the downside to me chatting to these people this early is if I revisit them in later missions, sometimes they will just not have any new dialogue and say, yeah, I'm busy, go away, which in some ways is better. But sometimes you can chat to Kelly, for example, and go through the same story lines over and over and over and over and over again. And I don't know, in some ways that's a little bit more frustrating, I think, because you think, oh, there's more chat to do, and then it's like, oh no, that's just the same chat as I had last time. But anyway, this is the bit where you get to flirt with her a bit. So, we're not going to fail, and I trust you, and all this sort of business. And here you go. I could fall back, and you've now got a choice of I'd embrace you, I'd catch you, or I'd drop you. Here you go. And she's like, oh, hey, oh, Shepherd. Anyway, there you go. I'd best leave her to get on with stuff. And you've got this new feature here, where you've got your private terminal, which is available next to Kelly, but also in your captain's quarters. And as you can see, because I've activated my Cerberus key, I got access to all these unlocks. I've got loads and loads of emails here. So if you get the base game, just bear in mind you're not going to have all these options, because a lot of these options are DLC. And this is one thing I do think they didn't get quite right, sadly, with Mass Effect 2. They started to do the kind of, well, not quite microtransaction, but the DLC route, which is annoying, because I think with all the DLC, Mass Effect 2 is a much, much better game than it was as it shipped out the box. Now, some of the DLC is like fancy rifles, fancy armor, not a big deal, but the extra characters, not having them, a little bit of a pain, but not having the Shadow Broker as standard is a really big loss. Now, as I say, I do have my problems with the Shadow Broker, which should this series continue on all the way through to the final mission, I will be talking about that. But as I say, if you do buy Mass Effect 2, I think you need to get the Shadow Broker. That is one bit of DLC you definitely should buy, because it's a fantastic mission, despite some issues I have with it. But you're really missing out by not having that, in my opinion. Fantastic fun with some great visuals. Anyway, so that's your messages. You've also got some advanced combat training stuff, which I don't really tend to fiddle with now I've done it. But if you've never played the game, you might want to have a bit of a play with that. There's a little weapons rack there you can play with, and you can speak to Jacob. And as I say, Jacob, I don't know, is he the Caden of Mass Effect 2? I actually think he's quite a fun character, because, as I say, he is the Cerberus guy who also doesn't fully trust Cerberus, and he is sort of the gateway for someone like myself who's a big fan of Mass Effect 1 to say, well, if Jacob can do it, maybe I can go along with it. Unfortunately, he does get the reputation of maybe being a little bit of a boring character for some people. Now, I haven't noticed it yet, but I did notice on the Xbox that he does tend to stride up and down a bit too much, doing the same, like, strutting, walking, rocking his shoulders move. He's much better when he's slightly more static like this, crossing his arms and uncrossing his arms. So watch out for that later. Now I've mentioned it, you probably cannot unsee. But yeah, he's definitely one of my favourite characters in the game, because he's got a lot of respect for you, and as I say, he shares your cynicism of these ex-terrorists. Anyway, you get some nice bits in this area here. This is the kind of mission debriefing room. You can also get to talk to the elusive man, and you've got some nice little kind of quasi quantum physics going on here, where it's talking about quantum entangulation and how you can have a point-to-point communication and all that. And it's an interesting idea, and I guess from a point of view of physics, it's potentially possible, because with the quantum physics, where if you've got two linked particles somehow, and if you change one to one thing, it will instantly change the other one, and therefore you can sort of do a 0101 binary backwards and forwards instantaneous communication. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting idea, and that's the other thing I really like about the Mass Effect series. Whilst it's not hard sci-fi, it's more towards that hard sci-fi than epic space fantasy genre of sci-fi, so that is very, very enjoyable. Anyway, we'll be done here in a sec, so we will get the modern elevator rides of Mass Effect 2, which are improved on Mass Effect 1, although I do miss the companion chats that you would get in the elevator in Mass Effect 1. They were sometimes really, really good. And each area, by the way, I haven't necessarily activated them, but each area has an ED panel that you can talk to. And as you can see, whenever you get near Kelly, if you've got a message, she will let you know, and you can have a look and see what maybe you're being updated on. And occasionally it's some nice little, hey, thanks for the mission you just did, but you saved my life. Or it could be, oh, there's a new person you need to go visit. Anyway, I'm going all the way down to the bottom, and there's a really nice cargo area here that you'd love to go and visit. And you can a bit later on. There are also some hatches that are locked. They will become unlocked as you discover new crew. And then you've got these two people here. So Daniels and what's his name? Donnelly? Yeah, Donnelly. And these are quite interesting little people. They have a little bit of banter with each other. A bit later on, they have a bit of banter with some of your recruits. Often if you get a new recruit who comes down near them, they comment on them. And as I say, it's really BioWare, firing on all cylinders. You may notice as well on my face I've got this weird glow. That's because of the biotics that I've had implanted in me from being resurrected, and there is a bit of an option later on to actually heal your scars to cover that up if you want. But only if you unlock stuff. So there's lots of little extra bits to unlock, and by talking to people you get to hear about potential upgrades. Now these upgrades are actually pretty important, because if you don't have them when it comes to your final mission, aka the suicide mission, not having the upgrades can potentially have an effect on the survivability of crew and companions. And that's where, as I say, this game is really good. And if you've never played any Mass Effect, it's a great entry point into the actual game, because the stories that are told within the framework of Mass Effect 2 are excellent. And as I say, I really enjoy Morden and a couple of the others. In fact, Morden, Archangel, and let's just say your science officer, I think work really well, or engineering officer, not science officer, engineering officer. So those three characters I really, really enjoy. Couple of the other companions, they're good, but they're not quite on the same level. And in fact, the very first character you pick up, which is a DLC character, I found him personally the weakest one, although his loyalty mission is quite interesting. So the framework of Mass Effect 2 is go find a companion, recruit them. Then at some random point in time, you'll be asked basically to do a loyalty mission. In addition, you need to find upgrades to the Normandy, and all of this is on the big push towards trying to solve how to deal with the collectors. There are a couple of other little missions related to that, which finally leads you to the final suicide mission, and depending on how you've done during the game will depend on how quickly you end up going off there. Now, this is the engine room, and it's not really much goes on in there, but as you saw as I was going off to look at that, the engineers in the background making little comments about, oh, it's great, Shepard came to see us and all that. As I say, they do have some pretty interesting little side conversations. There's an area down here that's currently empty, but you can recruit a companion who likes to live down here. And as I say, it's a nice upgrade to the Normandy. It's a very interesting ship to explore. It is quite easy to get lost though, because if you take the wrong turning when you come up to the top of the stairs here, you end up back in the engineering section rather than out in the main hallway, just like that, you see. So yeah, locked doors, and there are some toilets. Now I haven't quite worked out what the toilets are for beyond just, you know, being for a bit of fun, and for some reason I tried to go back into engineering again. Anyway, let's go up to the crew quarters, and very important areas, so you can make sure you calibrate your guns. Anyway, let's have a look around in this bit. Now there are lots of doors here, and this door, basically you get some nice little, again, background story and a nice view of the engineering room. And in fact there are several areas where you get a pretty good view of the engineering room, which is a bit weird for one of the romance options that you can deal with, because you decide to get a little bit into each other, shall we say, in the engine room, which potentially everyone on the ship can see into. So that's a little bit weird. Now the women and gentlemen's restrooms, as I say, you can go in there, but there's not much you can do in there, so that's a little bit odd. And another face from the past here, Dr. Chukwas, is it? Yeah. Anyway, this is your doctor from Mass Effect 1, and she also, like the Joker, has decided to come on board with Cerberus. Now, the reason for her coming on is basically she gets grounded at the end of Mass Effect 1, or the start of Mass Effect 2, I guess, and that drives her nuts, and she wants to fly, and the only people who are prepared to let her fly is Cerberus, and of course she gets to fly on the most advanced ship that humans have managed to get hold of, which is the Normandy. So she joins up, and you know, she's quite a nice character to have from the past, and you get some fun little conversations with her. Again though, a bit like Kelly, you can have the same conversations with her over and over again, which is a little bit frustrating. But anyway, this is the area where you can eventually access Edie, and also where you can get your scars healed. I can't remember if there's a Medigel dispenser here like there was in Mass Effect 1. But anyway, as I say, it's a nice little area anyway, and definitely brilliant nods back, as I say, to the original game and the original ship. Now, there are some new characters here, and your old cabin has been purloined by Miranda, so we'll have to go have a quick visit with her shortly as well. Anyway, I think that's probably going to do for us exploring the Normandy shortly, so just a couple of little chats to have, then we will actually fly off to our first mission. As you can see, quite a lot of conversation you can have here, and you know, if you don't want to do all this chatty stuff, you can avoid it, but sometimes you're going to do yourself a disfavour, because you're not going to get the option to buy upgrades, you're not going to have the options to learn about loyalty missions, and you do yourself a bit of a disservice. So if you just want to play, you know, shooty kind of Call of Duty style games, well, Mass Effect 3 and Mass Effect Andromeda do have that kind of multiplayer shoot 'em up side game, but you know, Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 are, to my mind, role-playing games. But it was Mass Effect 2 where they started the move towards the more shooty access. Anyway, we get to have a chat with the chef slash kind of toilet cleaner, which is a little bit odd. And yeah, he's a slightly interesting character, I have to say. But he will give you a little mini side quest for the Citadel just to grab some fancy food, and that's a good way of improving everyone's morale, so it's definitely worth having a chat with him. Now, I seem to remember without the high def texture, in some ways he looks slightly different, and I'm not sure if I like the look with the high def textures, but maybe it's just because it's showing up how his face, to my mind, looks a little bit odd. But yeah, he's a character you can have the odd little chat with, but you know, after this initial chat, I found him not that interesting to talk to, and it's rather interesting they put him in the spot where Caden used to be. So yeah, I don't know if there's any particular thread there of you know, slightly uninteresting character stuck in the same place. Anyway, I think I run off to have a chat with Miranda very shortly, and again, initially she's a little bit frosty, but she does open up to you as the game goes along, and you know, you can have some quite interesting chats with her, and she's got a very interesting loyalty mission as well. And your opinion of Miranda will change. You start off not really liking her too much, and you do warm up to her, as I say, as the game progresses. And there you go. So what have we got here? Okay, so yeah, he's joined Cerberus because the Batarians, who are these kind of four-eyed alien guys who get mentioned as being slavers, they basically drove him over the edge, and so he's gone off to Cerberus because they're the only people who are prepared to stick up for humanity. And this is where I think, as I say, they did do quite a good job at maybe making you realise why would people buy into Cerberus. And as I say, to me it's a little bit insidious, because the initial reasoning is, you know, I joined Cerberus because they're looking out for humanity. Okay, you can get behind that, but as I say, having played a lot of Mass Effect 1, when you know more about Cerberus, they're a little bit delusional maybe at thinking Cerberus is quite so nicey, and that kind of comes to play out a bit in Mass Effect 3 as well, when you find out Cerberus are not really that different from they were in Mass Effect 1. So yeah, that's an interesting little twist for me. Anyway, Miranda here, stealing my office. So you can talk to her about crewmates, Normandy status, and tell me about yourself. But initially, when you ask her about herself, she is a little bit more reserved than some of the other characters. And she is very good at, if she's not wanting to talk to you, saying, I'm really busy, I'm dealing with stuff, go away. And as I say, that frustrated me at first, but maybe that's better because you're not wasting your time running up to people having the same conversation over and over again. Anyway, here you go. If you got any issues, have a chat with me and I can allay any of your concerns. So yeah, we get to have a little bit of a chat about what does Cerberus do, what does she do, and all that stuff. And as I say, yeah, she is very much the sort of public face of Cerberus, the nice side of Cerberus. And again, as I say, I think as we go through the story, we are able to persuade Miranda that maybe Cerberus is not quite as nice as she seems to be deluding herself with. So as I say, I get very mixed with Mass Effect 2, because I was talking about it actually yesterday with a friend of mine. I would have preferred if you didn't know you were working with Cerberus. In fact, it'd be better if you just thought it was someone in the Alliance who'd revived you, and it was only kind of towards the end that you suddenly discovered that Cerberus were involved. But anyway, we're not going to be able to do that. We can't really retcon everything, but it just makes me sad that maybe they didn't go down that route, because that would have been a really cool twist to get nearly all the way to the end and then suddenly have yeah, by the way, you do realise you're working for Cerberus, and you're like, what? That would be much better than starting off by killing you and having you working for Cerberus. But anyway, let's move on. So yeah, she doesn't really know much about Tim, so you're not going to find out much about him. But again, she seems to think he's wonderful. It's a little bit annoying to me. And I was reading on the blogs that I was mentioning in my previous videos about various little inconsistencies in the story and characters' opinions that that if you really want to look closely at Mass Effect 2, you can get very dissatisfied with it. But as I say, as long as you're prepared to go with it as what it is, the gameplay is fantastic and the story's great, and it's really going to kick off once we get to the loading screen and actually go visiting various people to try and recruit them. So I'm initially going to go to Omega, and you can recruit 3 people if I remember correctly. So you've got the DLC character, you've got Archangel, and you've got Morden. They are all based at Omega, and it's a pretty good point to start your Mass Effect 2 adventures in. So despite me telling Miranda that, you know, I'm not going to do what you're telling me to do, I in fact do actually what she tells me to do, and it's very logical. You do need Morden because he gives you a load of extra unlocks, and he's also going to stop you dying to the collectors and their swarms. So yes, it is logical to go to Morden first. Anyway, putting her in her place a little bit. She's going on about how she's, you know, cybernetically awesome, biotically awesome, genetically awesome, good looking, intelligent, fast, etc, etc. So, as I say, if you want to, you can dislike Miranda quite intensely. But anyway, I think that's enough of this deck. Let's get ourselves quickly to the cabin, have a look at your quarters, and then back to the galaxy map and off to our main mission. Okay, so we are running off to the elevator. I'm going to quickly pop up to the captain's quarters, where you can buy various bits and pieces to enhance your living space. So you can get a little pet, you can buy some fish, you can check out on your love interest, which as you can see is Liara for me. You can get some model ships, you can feed your fish, you can change the background music, you can fiddle with your armor set, change your casual appearance, so be an outlaw, be a Cerberus uniform, or go for the slightly more Alliance uniform that I've got. And as you can see, I've unlocked a whole load of stuff. You've got your default armor and then all the unlocks, so I think I'm going to end up with the collector's set if I remember correctly. And if you scroll down, you can see the various stats of the different sets depending on which character you are. You might wish to fiddle with various bits and pieces, and if you had Dragon Age, you could also unlock the Dragon Age skin, which is the one I had been wearing up to this point. So anyway, the collector's armor set is quite an interesting set, so I'm pretty sure that's the one I actually end up picking if I remember correctly. So drag and drop, click apply, and then have a run around. But yeah, if you want to, you can check your messages up here. You can mark them as read, check on your team stats. You can cycle, as you can see, the appearance of people if you've got an alternative uniform for them, and you can find a teeny amount about them, and in particular, you know, are they loyal? That's a pretty important step. As I say, for the final mission. You can also check on your achievements, and you have your own toilet. Anyway, time to get to the CNC and actually get ourselves playing the main meat of the game, which is recruiting people and getting ready for the final mission. So, no messages, excellent. Let's click on the map and get ourselves off. So you do actually have to fly around here, which I wasn't so keen on. I preferred the old-fashioned map personally. In particular, I find it annoying that you have to buy fuel and probes for some of the bits and pieces you'll be doing in a short while. And here you go, let's enter orbit and dock, and that will trigger a fancy cutscene, which I don't think you can skip, which is a little bit annoying once you've been there the once. I mean, the first time you go there it's awesome, but you know, the third or fourth time, if you for some reason end up going back to a spot, you have to go through this same cutscene every single time, and that's a little bit irritating. That is always the problem with cutscenes. They're awesome the first time you see them, and I believe this is a big problem for all of the Mass Effect games, including Mass Effect Andromeda. There have been a couple of whinges online about unskippable cutscenes, which I believe a patch might be fixing. Anyway, we are about to dock, and we will then get cracking with our main mission.